Order, order. Questions to the Secretary of State for Scotland, Mr Alan Cairn.
Number one, Mr Speaker.
With permission, Mr Speaker, I will answer questions 1, 8 and 10 together. The First Minister and I met on Monday the 13th of February to discuss a referendum on independence. The Prime Minister, First Minister and I had a further meeting on Thursday the 16th of February where we discussed the need for any referendum to be legal, fair and decisive. It is in everyone's interests that both Scotland's governments work together, and I look forward to meeting the First Minister again in due course.
Mr Alan Cairn.
The Scottish Government are the most resolute defenders of the Barnett Formula, arguably against the interests of the other nations of the United Kingdom. Therefore, if the people of Scotland vote yes in a referendum on independence, do you not think that the Barnett Formula, does the Secretary of State not think that the Barnett Formula should apply to the nation's debt?
Yes. Well, can I say I don't envisage that Scotland will become independent from the United Kingdom. I think we are stronger together and weaker apart. But he does touch on a fundamental issue about sorting out what the basis of that independence might look like, questions which the SNP have so far singularly failed to answer.
Mr Ian Mackenzie.
Will the Secretary of State again confirm both his and the Government's commitment to a single, non-leading question in the referendum on Scottish separation, and will he further commit a simple yes or no reply?
The fundamental issue is about independence. That is what we must resolve. We must have a legal, fair and decisive independence referendum.
Amber Rudd.
Mr Speaker, could my right honourable friend clarify whether he's had conversations regarding Antarctica and whether it is true that the last government simply forgot to deal with Antarctica and the British territory there, and what his current position is for making sure that we reserve control of it?
The honourable lady highlights an important part of the world which it is important that we as the UK Government have a role to play in. Can I just point out to her that through the Scotland Bill, which is passing through the Lordship's House at the moment, we are delivering the biggest transfer of powers to Edinburgh since the Act of Union, and we are tidying up some of the inconsistencies of the devolution settlement.
Mr Stuart Housey.
The Scottish Secretary and the Prime Minister met with the First Minister. The Prime Minister offered the proposal for enhanced devolution, but failed to spell out what that might be. Can the Scottish Secretary tell us what he envisages a package of devolved financial powers might look like? Would it include corporation tax, all of income tax, aggregates levy? What does the Scottish Secretary think a package of enhanced devolved powers might look like?
I think it's incredible that the SNP want to stand up and ask a question about further devolution when they hadn't set out what the fundamentals of independence would be. You'd think that after decades of having this as their main reason for existence, they might have some clear ideas on it.
Mr Stuart Housey.
That's a very instructive answer because it failed to answer the question entirely. There is no detail about what the Prime Minister proposed. Is that because there is no detail? Is it because the announcement was simply to capture one day's news headlines? Or is it to cover the embarrassment of this government, which voted against the devolution of any further powers in the Commons debates on the Scotland Bill last year?
Honestly, Mr Speaker, the Honourable General has a bit of a cheek talking about a lack of detail when they cannot spell out what the currency situation would be in an independent Scotland, what the national debt might look like, how we deal with pensions, financial regulation. It is absolutely clear. We must make the most fundamental decision on Scotland's future in a clear-cut and decisive way. The debate about devolution will be ongoing, and I very much look forward to being part of that.
Sir Mingus Campbell.
My right honourable friend has spelt out the absence of detail from members of the Scottish National Party in this House. But I wonder, in the opportunities he's had, has he impressed upon the First Minister his unequivocal obligation to explain to the people of Scotland not just the process of independence, but the consequences of it, the costs of it, and the length of time it would take to implement?
Well, my right honourable learned friend highlights some very important central issues about this debate over independence. I believe Scotland is stronger as part of the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom is stronger because Scotland is part of it. But on financial issues, about our place in the world, the strength of our defence, there are huge numbers of unanswered questions from the SNP, which they must now get ahead and address.
Russell Brown.
According to the latest figures published in the annual population survey, the number of 16 to 19-year-olds estimated to be not in education, employment or training in Scotland in 2010 was 36,000.
Mr Russell Brown.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I say to the Secretary of State, and because there's another important element to the question I asked, it is up to 24-year-olds, because these are the hardest hit young people and we don't want to see that lost generation. But can I say to him, in rural localities like his and mine, policies to get young people back into work will really depend, as far as the private sector is concerned, on small and medium-sized enterprises. These businesses are suffering severely, and that pressure that is upon them is not enabling them to create jobs. Does he understand that we need task force type mentality to deal with youth and young people's unemployment?
Well, can I say to the honourable gentleman that the statistics up to 24 is something that my officials are working on. They're not currently published, but I look forward to getting the data for him and other honourable members in the House. On the fundamentals of the economy, I absolutely agree with him that we need small and medium-sized businesses to be given the ability to grow, and that's why we're putting pressure on the banks to lend to them, and also for the young people that we are dealing with, ensuring that we support them. That's why the youth contract is absolutely fundamental. £1 billion to help people get more places and work experience, to help employers to take people on. It's that kind of action that will help people get onto the jobs market.
Mr Malcolm Bruce.
Speaker, my right honourable friend rightly mentions the youth contract, which comes into effect into April. Will he not agree that it is absolutely imperative that the Scottish Government, the British Government and employers in Scotland work together positively to ensure that young people get the opportunities and are not distracted by scoring points against each other, but rather working together for young people?
I quite agree with my right honourable friend, and I would point out that working with members across this House over the last 6 to 8 months, I have held meetings and seminars around Scotland focused on youth unemployment, bringing together employers, young people, Scottish Government agencies and United Kingdom Government agencies. And in March in Dundee we will have a national convention which John Swinney and my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, will attend, so that we can take this agenda forward together.
Dr Ailey Whiteford.
Mr Speaker, I don't think anyone in this House is complacent about youth unemployment and the plight of young people trying to find work in very trying economic circumstances. I welcome the joint initiative of the National Convention taking place in March next month, but can I press the Secretary of State on what outcomes he expects from that convention, and if he will welcome the initiatives that the Scottish Government has taken to ensure a place for every young person aged 16 to 19 in Scotland in work or training or education.
I think it's absolutely vital that Scotland's two governments work together on this terrible problem that existed under the last government and which continues. We are needing to address that using everything we can to help young people get experience, get the training or get those jobs. We will work hard on all of those, and if others wish to work with us, we welcome that.
Curran.
Can the Secretary of State tell the House how many young Scots have lost their jobs since he was appointed to his in May 2010?
If I may say to the Honourable Lady, she should remember the economic mess that we inherited from the Labour government. Since when we are fixing the deficit, we are seeking to rebalance the economy and to ensure we have sustainable growth. The youth contract, work experience and all the support we are giving is vital to ensure that we get young people back into the workplace.
Margaret Curran.
I notice the Secretary of State struggled with that answer somewhat. Well, there is one statistic he should be familiar with. Since his government scrapped the Future Jobs Fund, 23,000 jobs have been lost in Scotland. That's over 400 jobs every week for young people, whilst he has become the Tories' man in Scotland. We're in the midst of a youth unemployment crisis, and the Secretary of State for Scotland has been posted missing. In contrast, Labour took direct action. through the Futures Jobs Fund, delivering over 10,000 real jobs for young people in Scotland. So can the Secretary of State share with the House what plans he has, any ideas at all about to take direct, effective action to tackle youth unemployment in Scotland?
As ever, the Honourable Lady wishes to leave behind that horrible mess that her government left for us to fix. She cannot escape that reality or the fact that youth unemployment rose under Labour. We are investing £1 billion in the youth contract, which will enhance the number of work experience places, will provide additional support for employers taking on young people, and has provided the Scottish Government with additional resources. I've been working with her colleagues and others to ensure that we do everything we can to tackle this terrible problem.